The president did have a bit of a pep rally today at the White House for his legislative reconciliation bill in the United States Senate. You have not indicated a willingness to support that bill yet. I'm wondering, Senator Paul, have you given the White House a way to earn your vote?
Oh, you're talking about the big, not yet beautiful bill. Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, we've been talking about that. So, no, I've talked to the president several times about it, and I've said, yes, I support the tax cuts. I voted for them in 2017. I would like to make the tax cuts permanent. I'm for spending cuts. Right now, I think they're wimpy and anemic, but even wimpy and anemic, I would tolerate because that's where the caucus is. But the one thing I can't vote for is to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. And so I've told him that if they create a separate vote, if they need my vote, if there are 49 votes, he can get my vote and I'll vote for it in a heartbeat, enthusiastically, if they just separate the debt ceiling into another vote. The reason I can't vote to increase the credit line or the line of credit for Congress is Congress is not shown to be very good with money. In fact, I would compare Congress to a reckless teenager. You give a 16-year-old a credit card, they run up $2,000 worth of debt. They're at their debt limit. What do? They come to mom and dad and say, oh, please give us a $10,000 line of credit. No parent in their right mind would do that. But it's the same way with Congress. Congress is a bunch of reckless teenagers with a terrible history of accumulating nearly $37 trillion in debt, $2 trillion a year, $1 trillion in interest now. You'd be a fool to expand these people's line of credit. And so we'll see. Right now, I don't think they need my vote. They're not acting like they need it. So there hasn't been a willingness on their side to negotiate. If they have,
they don't have the votes yet. I mean, we've heard from Senator Tuberville, we've heard from others that they don't have the votes right now because you've got Collins and Murkowski and Hawley concerned about the Medicaid cuts, which I actually think are a pretty good idea. And then there are the fiscal hawks who, the argument you're making is very sympathetic on this program. And I wonder, Senator Paul, there are 535 lawmakers in Washington. How many do you think really care about the debt?
A handful, and less all the time. More when there's a Democrat president. They're more vocal when there's a Democrat president, less vocal when there's a Republican president. But I will say that you're right. There are two different competing interests. The left wing of our caucus wants more money. The right wing, which I'm part of, wants less money spent. So we're for less spending. But right now, it seems to be easier to feed the left than to compromise with the right. So they're feeding the left, and the left, they say, oh, we're going to cut about $100 billion in Medicaid. All right, but then we'll give the hospitals $100 billion to make up for it. That doesn't sound like a cut. That sounds like a shell game. And right now, the bill, as we speak, the spending was scored at $400 billion. The spending isn't an estimate. It's not an estimate of revenue coming in. It's a real thing. They're going to spend $400 billion, but that's before they get to the hospital subsidy. They're talking about $100 billion for that. So that means the bill has $500 billion in new spending, and then they're going to continue the 2017 tax cuts, which I consider a wash, but then they're going to add a couple of new tax cuts, tips, Social Security, and overtime. I'm for those, but I think they will reduce revenue in the first year or two. So you're going to have a little bit of reduced tax revenue, you're going to have a massive increase in spending, and then one of their pay-fors is to get rid of Biden's student loan forgiveness program. And I'd say, well, yeah, I'm against that. That's a really stupid program, and we never should have done it, but the courts have already struck it down. So they're going to get rid of a program that doesn't really exist and count it as a savings. It's a fake pay for. So the bottom line, if you want to add all this up, it's confusing because people at home are like, $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there. It's hard to know. How does it all add up? The only way you can make sense of it is, what will the deficit be? That's an addition of what the revenue will be minus the expenditures. This year it's going to be $2.2 trillion. I asked the Secretary of Treasury this week, will it be more or less next year? And he fumbled around with the answer and wasn't explicit, but I can tell you the answer. The deficit will be more next year than this year, which means we're not changing the direction of the country. It's not a big, beautiful bill. And really, 3 months after this bill, we're going to have a big, beautiful omnibus that comes right after this.
No, don't tell me. Don't
I
blackmail
promise
me
you,
on
that's
that.
the next thing.
I can't
You know
take
how
it.
it works around here.
I hate that stuff. But here's the argument that people on the other side would make, that if you require a separate vote on the debt limit, that requires the administration to go and work with Chuck Schumer because they don't have the 50 vote threshold that you get in reconciliation. But the argument that's been presented is actually what Rand Paul is asking of the administration is to empower Chuck Schumer on a broader bipartisan deal to raise the debt limit.